Welcome back. So as you can see, we have our basic wheel, and the first row we painted in the last video, and they're dry, which is really, I waited, an hour or so between doing the videos so that the paint could dry. And so I'm going to be working on the other rings here. So what I'll do is I'll show you how I'm going to do it and why I'm going to do it the way I'm going to do it. So we're going to start off with a little bit of water. I should use clean water. All right, I paused for a second there to get some clean water. And I have my palette knife, and I have a 1/8 teaspoon. And so what we're going to do, and what I'll show you a sample of how to do this, and then I'll probably do a time lapse of me doing it so that it doesn't take an enormous amount of time because I'm trying to make these 15-minute videos for you to watch. So we're going to start off with the red. Now the first, if you look at the sample here, red, first one down is red. So they're saying if you add red to red, what do you get? So this is how that would sample out. So if we add red to red, we get red. So the first one, we're just going to paint, doing the same process we did before. Straight from the tube again, because we're just doing the same red. Red plus red is red. So that's going to fill in this little spot. Simple enough. And that, we'll do that one. And then I'm going to clean the brush. So the consistent thing here is you clean your brush every time with your dirty water. So I'm doing that out of camera width, but you know how to do that. All right, so the next one, I'm on the red. So the red added to red is red. Now if I move this dial over, red added to yellow is orange. And so what you want to do here is take your red and squirt it into your 1/8 scoop, and you're going to smooth it out so that you're getting just 1/8 of a teaspoon of red. All right. And then you're going to wipe off your palette knife and move your paint into a little cup. Now I bought these little cups at Smart and Final, but a cash and carry will have them. You're never going to get your teaspoon completely clean, but you're trying to get the same amount of paint in your mixing colors. So I'm just going to wipe that off, and I will clean my teaspoon out for you. Now you can get teaspoons like this, very, very cheap at a thrift store, and they will allow you to ruin them because they'll have chemicals on them, because paints have chemicals in them, and so you don't want to use them for your cooking. So I just took and cleaned this out. It just took me a moment. It's not perfect, but it's pretty clean. And I'm going to cap my red like that. Take my yellow do the same process of filling it up. Take my palette knife again, and I'm trying to just have about the same amount of paint going from one to the other, which is pretty close. I'll wipe off my excess and then scoop it in to the same container, because the assumption here is that when I'm mixing my red and my yellow, I'm using the same amount of paint in each color. That's what we're trying for. It's the same amount. When you're just mixing your colors on a palette, it is difficult to measure, or impossible to measure from, just say like a palette knife. So we're doing our best to have the same amount of both colors, as you can see here. So the next thing I'll want to do is I'm going to take a dropper. You can use any kind of dropper. Add a couple drops of, I'm going to do 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. And that way I know that I'm using the same formula as I mix my colors together in this little cup. Now I got, the cups were like $3 for 100 or something like that. And so they're very inexpensive. You can wash them out, or you can just discard them, depending on what you're doing. You can also get measuring spoons that are smaller than what I used. Again, your choice of how you're going about it. I'm just showing you this process because my objective was to mix equal parts of the 2 paint colors for my mixture. And this is the best way that I could do it using simple things I had around the house. So this is the orange that resulted from my mixture. So before I discard my paint or whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to go over here to my color wheel and go to my red and yellow, and it has an orange. So this orange here and this orange here should be the same color. Because basically I'm mixing the same one together. So again, I'm going to reference here. From the red, this was where, I'll go here. Red went down, we added yellow, we got orange. So yellow, if I add red, I get orange. So in the first one here, I'm going to have the same orange. It's just moved around the spot depending on which color you're using to find your color on the wheel. And it is easy to get mixed up. So if you get mixed up, I totally understand. All right. So now this one is officially done. I only have 2 of those oranges, the orange here and the orange here, and all of the other ones, even though it looks similar, it's from a different mixture. So we'll go here from yellow orange. Well, let's see, it's saying add red to yellow orange. So the red is not being added to the yellow, it's being added to the yellow orange. And so it comes out a slightly different shade depending on what your yellow orange looks like, which mine is quite a bit different from my cadmium. So I would not use this color in there again. So I'm going to discard because we're doing a video. And so we're going to get another little cup. Like I said, I have a whole stash. I have a whole bunch more than that. So we will go to the next one, which if I'm staying with the red, I'll go back here to the red, came here, and we add blue. That's the third one down. We add blue. So that's my next adventure. So I go back, do the red again, and let me get my little thing, clean it out, the yellow. Like I said, cleaning doesn't take much. It just takes a moment. And since your teaspoon is actually quite small, it's an 1/8, you're not using that much paint, even though you'll feel like you are. All right, we use palette knife to smooth it over. Try to get it even. Voila. And then we're going to put that back in a new cup. So the cup is new. The paint going into it is fresh. And again, it's probably going to have 2 places where you're going to paint the mixture. Keep that in mind. So you'll use some of this paint up. All right. That. Just want to get a little bit of, get that a little cleaner. Okay, so that's the red. And so after I do the blue here, then I'll switch you over to time lapse, and it'll go much faster in your view, so you won't have to watch me doing this same process over and over. Between, you'll be able to see the color wheel taking shape. And maybe I can get this video up for you today as well as the earlier one. The first one. So this will be the second video in how to make a custom color wheel. And again, I've got my little clean little one. And we're going to go to Phthalo Blue, which is the blue that I've identified on my color wheel right here. If you notice, I put an X on the cadmium and an X on the cadmium red. This is to remind me which are the primary colors for this particular palette. So I've identified my phthalo as being my close blue. So I filled it up. Oof. And I'm going to put it in my little cup. Scrape this as clean as I can to try to get as even a mixture as possible. So this is half red, half blue, which should give us a purple. And wipe off my palette knife. Gonna get my water. 1, 2, 3 drops. So by keeping my water the same, even though my paints are not all the same in how dried out they may be. So some are going to be drier than others. I want to have sort of a bottom line similarity. So I'm using 1/8 of a teaspoon of paint of each color. Then I'm using 3 drops of water, clean water, and then I'm mixing. So we'll mix these two together, and that will show you what this process is. And then for the rest of these, I'm going to continue the same process. So I'm not adding any white or any I'm not adding a medium, which you could do this same process with a medium, and you could do it with a glaze. You could really kind of figure it out for what your needs are, for your particular. Okay, still getting a lot of red in the brush. Get the brush to really get coated. Still getting some red. Unevenness. But this will give you a pretty good idea of what your particular colors are doing. So we'll come in, I can double check this. On the red, you see red, orange, blue. Red, orange, here's my blue. Now I may try to go ahead and get a scan for you to include in the PDF of what's going on here, but how, about which the original ones were. You can see how much darker my purple is than the one from there. So this isn't really going to help me as much as this will, based on what do I actually have. So I'm going to come over here to the blue. So if we turn this and we start at the blue and we add red, there is that purple. So when I turn this to the blue, which is phthalo, and I have a white rim that goes around, the next one down is the red. So we're going to paint this one, what we ended up with. And like I said, it's much darker than the sample color wheel, which is why you're doing this, is you're trying to see what your paints are going to do in the circumstances of mixing. And they're not going to do the same for everyone has a different set of paints than I do, and you have different brands than I have, and different age of those paints. All those things are going to have an effect. So as you can see, that looks almost black. It's so dark. And so that's going to end this portion of showing you how I'm doing it in detail. And what you'll see next, hopefully, is a time lapse of me doing exactly that, only sped up. Thank you. All right, we're back, and this is a time lapse section. So one of the things I want to mention here is that for every one of your outside ring colors, the 5 mixtures in the sections below that going toward the center of the wheel are red, yellow, blue, white, and black. So to each one of those sections, you're adding the upper color on the outside ring, and that will give you all of the colors for each section. So I don't know that I mentioned that earlier, but since we're moving along here in the time lapse, I thought I would go ahead and clarify that right off the bat. So you may also notice as I'm doing this process that I end up leaving the outer ring colors tube open because I'm using it 5 times for the red, yellow, blue, white, and black mixtures. and it just became easier. I'm also, instead of wiping off all of the paint that's on my palette knife, I'm returning the clean paints that are excess back to the tube. Those were just, as I was going along, I thought, well, that would make sense. So I went ahead and did that. So you may see me doing that here. The process worked really well. I found that a lot of my color mixtures gave me muddy colors. And the other thing I wanted to mention here is that the professionally produced color wheels, such as you see off to the left there in this image, are printed. They're printed inks. So the manufacturer has the ability to control the colors based on the ink product. I'm using acrylics and commercial prepared inks that I get from my fine art store. And like I said, when I started mixing colors, I ended up with a lot of muddy, not terribly pleasant mixtures, which I expected some of that, maybe not as much as I got. So the very center ring that you see ends up being a mixture of your outer ring and black. And I'm using a kind of thickened black paint because that's what I have. It's a heavy body paint. And they ended up kind of interesting. It's sort of like all the variations on black that you get. There are some browns and some grays and things like that. So that was kind of interesting for me. I don't know that I would use them a lot, but it was an interesting process. I'm now at the other end of it, so I have completed my my wheel and finished what I started off to do, which was to create one in my acrylics. And I will probably at some time in the future, for my own interest, my curiosity, I will probably recreate the colors as perfectly as I can. So I'll probably buy some other tubes of paint to try to match the color wheel produced commercially in ink and see if I can get closer to the colors that they're saying are in there. But what I learned is what I actually own, what I have. And that's really valuable in my opinion, because as an artist we all end up with mixed paint containers of what we have on hand based on what project we're doing and what it needs. And so, like I said, the actual color wheel that I have here off to the left are pretty much useless because I don't have the perfect colors, or I'm not painting in printer's ink, which is what they're made of. So I am going to do another one of these videos in Copic, doing face colors, face painting, so that I can, for my own benefit, I do a lot of Copic markers on some of my illustration. And so I want one of those, so I will be doing one of those, and of course I'll bring you along. But the process is similar. It's simply that the secondary mixture colors will not be red, yellow, blue, white, and black. They will be companion colors to face making. So those colors will not be the ones that I will blend. I've never used a black blending for a face color in Copic, so I won't in the future, I don't think. So the wheel that I'll try for that will be using the color combinations that I have already found that I like and use, and I'll try to arrange them in a way that is interesting and simplified. So I hope you have followed along. I am doing another video immediately after this one that will walk you through a couple ways to turn the pieces of this color wheel into a functioning tool for you, how to do it really cheap, how to do it a little bit better. But either way, they're inexpensive, and it'll give you a way to assemble this tool for yourself and to make as many of these tools as you want for whatever kind of color processes you're doing, like watercolor or color pencil, or even I may do one for myself in pastel pencils, because they blend pretty well. They're messy, so I'll probably use a fixative on the other side of them to keep the dust down. But I have lots of different color things, color making abilities. So as I go along, I will probably make more of these for myself. And like I said, I have a PDF for you if you want the basic template. Just email me. My email address is in the description for this video. Just email me and I will send you the PDF so that you can print it out for yourself and use it as many times as you want. So it'll be easy for you to get it and share it as you see fit. And the other thing I should mention is you can take the PDF and shrink it down to a much smaller color wheel for yourself. You don't have to stick at this large size that I got from the original. I am actually going to make some smaller ones because I would rather print these off on my own laser printer, and at a smaller size I can do that. My laser printer doesn't take 11 by 17, which is what the larger wheel needed to print out. So that's my plans for this template and the color wheel. And I did notice, one of the things I noticed when I was putting it together in the next video was that my circles, the center of my circles was easy to get a little bit lost because I'm putting a hole through two at a time. And in reality, I should be using the third part of the template, which gives even another layer, which I haven't covered here. So it would be 3 circles kind of marrying together and trying to get them all centered so they function right. So I did notice that was a little tricky to make sure I had it the right size. So I would say pay attention to that. Pre-fit your the first ring on top of the second ring, or circle, before you start, to make sure it's exactly the way you want. And then when you punch your holes through to get your center point, it will line up correctly. I'm going to have to redo mine a little bit because I did it on camera and it was a little off, which, that's life. I am an imperfect person trying to do the best I can on camera. But I like the end result. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the colors I have in my palette and where I'm lacking and where I really should improve what I have on hand if I'm going to do a lot more painting, which I think I'm going to be doing several more covers here in acrylic because I'm liking how it's turning out. I lucked out, and I only had to buy 4 or 5 new tubes of paint for the Bug Mage cover, which is what I have been painting, which you have probably seen in my available files, in the available videos. So I lucked out in that I had most of what I needed for the painting, and what I didn't have, I bought 3 or 4, like I said, tubes of paint, and that was fine. But I learned from this color wheel that I really need to have a broader spectrum of colors and different colors in my box if I want to have the widest range of colors through mixing that I can get. And I want to be able to not have to go to the store every time and try to fix things when I can't figure a color out. Today, I know a lot more about my colors than I did before I started this particular project. And like I said, I learned how muddy a lot of these mixtures are when you mix them together. One of the things I really liked about this project were the little cups. I was able to mix and clearly see if the mixture was getting close to not having unmixed portions. It was very visible, very simple to do, and I didn't feel terribly guilty about throwing the cup away at the end. And I could have, if I wanted to take more time, I could have cleaned all, the cup as I was going along. If I wasn't doing it on camera, I may have done that. But I still have probably 75 cups left at the end of the project. And here you see I've switched over. I did most of it off screen in the time lapse, doing the last purple. And even from here, you can tell that some of the colors are not fabulous. That you kind of look at them and go, I've never used that color intentionally in my life. And, it's what I have in my box. And clearly I have not been a good artist in maintaining my paints and having a good selection on hand so that I could do more with, have more vibrancy of color. Several of the colors are just so muddied and muddled looking when you mix them up, and quite a learning experience for me. I didn't realize I didn't have good mixtures. So I'm not sure what your color box looks like, what you're working on, and like I said, what kind of paint you're using. You can do this for oils as well. I would say if I were doing this on oils, I would probably double up the thickness of my cardstock so that the oils, could handle it a little bit better. This is a 100-pound hammer mill, like a Bristol board that I've used, and it held up to the acrylics just fine. So I could also do this same template on a watercolor paper if I was going to do watercolors and wanted sort of a softer look. I could do that very easily. Just print it off on a watercolor paper. You can cut a watercolor paper to 8.5 by 11 and run it through your laser printer at any copy store, and probably have no problems printing it out as long as the watercolor paper is not too thick. Most of them are designed to handle light cardstock, which is what 100-pound hammer mill is. It's a light cardstock with a slight finish on it like a Bristol. So anyway, we're coming down to the end of my time-lapse painting here. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I'll see you on the next one. Have a good day.